Welcome to John Butler's Buzz. My special guest today has a special relationship to a power celebrity couple that was known around the world. They ruled the Western Hollywood scene for a long time. Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. I had a very special relationship with them because I watched them on TV as I was growing up. They're still on cable TV. You can see them around the world on certain cable TV stations. My guest today had a very special relationship with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. She's the granddaughter, Julie Rogers Pomilia. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here today.
Julie has a new book out, and it's called Your Heroes, which they truly were. Your Heroes, My Grandparents, A Granddaughter's Love. Great title.
All of the values that they stood for back then still stand up today. And the relationship between a grandparent and a grandchild is so relatable and very special.
Was it 51 to about 57 they were on?
About that, because when I was born in 58, their show was already in reruns. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reruns have been continual, I think, since then. But
I know.
Roy was known as the king of the Cowboys, and he truly was. He started out as a singer, and he was a singing cowboy. He started from some very difficult roots, and so did Dale Evans.
Well, Grandpa never aspired to be an actor. He was looking into being a dentist at some point. And he was just a real shy, very bashful country boy and never would dream of being in front of people. And he was not a good small talker, he just was very painfully shy. Grandma, on the other hand, she didn't have a shy bone in her body. And she would sing and dance just at the drop of a hat from the time she can even remember. And she wanted to grow up really bad and badly. She wanted to grow up.
You wanted to grow up, yeah.
Yes, she did. And so she eloped at 14. Wow. Grandma eloped at 14, and she had my dad at 15. And then at 17, her husband then said, you know what, I'm not ready for this responsibility of a wife and a child, so I'm out. And so she was divorced at 17. And
a single mom.
Yeah, and a single mom, and not knowing what to do. She was bullheaded and didn't want her mother to adopt my dad. She wanted to do it herself. And so 3 marriages later, she had 3 marriages total before she got married to Grandpa. And she was a single mom working horrible hours at a secretarial job and then singing on the radio at night. And my dad kind of was the fallout from that. And yet she loved my dad fiercely, but she was even more just driven for searching for fame. So she was trying to kind of balance those two things, and it just wasn't working. My dad got very sick, and he had the rickets from malnutrition. She finally sent him to live with her parents on the farm, and that was the best thing for him. Yeah. So she struggled her way up the ladder. Grandpa Roy just kind of fell into it because his sister pushed him onto a radio show that was a contest, and he won the contest, the singing contest. And from there, it sort of slowly developed, getting into a part of a singing group, and then doing background music for TV and movies and things like that.
Well, it was rough times back then, and people today, we forget about America and where we've come from and the hard times, but back during the Depression years, just finding a meal for the day was a big deal.
Yes. And their family wanted to find a better life. They were in Cincinnati, and they lived in the backwoods holler. And Dad worked long hours at the shoe factory, although my grandpa in a lot of pictures was barefoot. I'm not quite sure how that worked out. But they traveled west to California to see if they could find a better life. And they picked peaches along the way. And he sang to kind of bring in extra money for the family. It was tough.
Well, I remember this is one of your stories, or if he was telling this, but I remember they would when he had the singing group. This is before it evolved into, I guess, Sons of the Pioneers, I believe. They would travel around the U.S. and they would stop at radio stations, might be there for a week, be on the air, and then sing that weekend. And that he would talk about foods he liked.
Yes.
And people would bring food to the radio station. I think you have one story about lemon pie, don't you?
That's right. That's right. And for his whole entire life, lemon pie was his favorite, lemon meringue pie. They didn't have meals. And so they would kind of hint on the radio station. And his second wife to be, Arlene, was listening, and she heard that he loved lemon meringue pie. So she showed up at the radio station with a lemon meringue pie for him and his buddies. And that's how he got to know Arlene, and they eventually got married.
A lemon pie will do it every time. You know?
That's right. That's right. All it takes.
That's right. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting both your parents and doing a little project with them some time back. We'll talk about that a little later. But it was fascinating because, like I said, I grew up with Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and the Roy Rogers TV show. And then, of course, they made movies also. But, it was so much fun to watch those shows. It was escapism. It was what they call a neo-Western. It wasn't the old West, but it was whatever neo-Western is the way they label it. And he was truly the king of the Cowboys. And on that TV show, they had, Pat Brady and Andy Devine, Gabby Hayes. Gabby Hayes was a classic. Smiley Burnett. And I had all the action figures. I had Nellie Bell, the Jeep. I had Trigger, the little horse. It was a whole set, I guess, I got for Christmas.
Right.
And of course, Roy and Dale. Dale's horse was Buttermilk, and Roy's was a famous horse named Trigger.
Trigger. That's right. That's right. He was a great horse.
Oh my God. He would rear up. I guess Roy would rear him up, and he could, I don't know how many tricks could he do? Do you know?
He did a lot of tricks, over 100 tricks. And
over 100.
So when we got on him, when Grandpa would set us on Trigger, he just would say, now be careful, don't touch him in a certain place, just don't, because he had so many cues to do tricks. I remember my older sister got on him one time and cued him to rear up accidentally. And Grandpa had to pull him right down. But Trigger was a horse that was so smart. You could just tell he knew that there was a child on him. Yeah. And I felt so safe on Trigger. He just stood like a stone while I was on him. When I was 3 years old, that was the first time I was on him. Yeah. And I remember that time. So
that's pretty cool. To tell you, and to relate to what a fan I am, when I bought a horse, when I got a horse years ago, I wanted the same coloring as Trigger, and I got a quarter horse, the same coloring. I didn't name it Trigger, but
yeah, my horse. We have two Palominos ourselves, and shocker, Palominos are my favorite because it totally brings me back to my childhood. Yeah. And actually, my one horse, Sonny, is on the cover of the book with me.
Oh, that's your horse.
So, yeah, I'm trying not to let it go to his head. He's now, demanding, extra treats in his trailer. And
probably has an agent by now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, mentioning the memorabilia items, because I remember I also had the lunchbox, and of course there were Roy Rogers books, but he rivaled Disney at one point on products, I believe.
He did. He had over 400 products, and he was second only to Disney. And he just felt like merchandising was helping him because Republic wouldn't pay him anymore. And he couldn't keep up with his fan mail because he couldn't afford the stamps to send the fan mail back, to send letters to them. And because he was getting thousands of letters a week.
I bet.
And so he started merchandising and putting his name and likeness on things. And we had a lot of that stuff because they would give it to us. The companies would send them things, and then they'd pass it on down to us.
We need to explain what you just said because the younger audience will not know what it means to put a stamp on an actual piece of paper, an envelope.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we used
before
to
the days of
letters. They're
email.
called letters.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, they had to write letters and put stamps on them. There was no email. Gosh, it sounds like the dark ages, but
Yeah.
That was the time.
Yeah, that was the time.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who has the Texas Radio Broadcast Museum, actually Radio and Television Museum here in Texas. He had a group of Boy Scouts into the museum, and they have all kinds of radio equipment, TV equipment, filming equipment from over the years. And the little group of Boy Scouts were clustered over the corner as he was trying to lead them on through the museum. And he went back to look and see what they were focused on. You know what it was?
What?
A dial telephone.
A dial. I knew you were going to say that.
They could not believe that someone would wait that long when you dialed a 9 because it was click, click,
because
click, click,
all
click,
the way back around. And if you missed a number and got it wrong, you had to start all over again.
Exactly.
And it took forever.
So, anyway, well, okay. So Roy went from singing and traveling around and getting free lemon pies.
Yeah.
And picking peaches along the way, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
to a TV show. And I understand he got it because Gene Autry missed a show.
Right. Gene Autry was in contract dispute with the studios. He wanted more money, and the studios, were pretty tight. They would not give him more money. And so they were looking for a new singing cowboy. And Grandpa was in getting his hat cleaned at the cleaners, and this guy rushed in real fast, and they got to talking. He said, "What are you in such a hurry for?" And he said, "Well, they're looking for a new singing cowboy over at Republic. And so I need so I'm on my way." So Grandpa thought, I wonder if maybe I could go in and try that. And so he snuck in. He wasn't allowed on the lot because he wasn't anybody. And he snuck in with the extras that were coming back from lunch. And all of a sudden there was a hand on his shoulder, and he thought, I'm found out. But it was somebody that he knew, and that somebody got him a screen test for this cowboy part. He said, you might be the perfect person. And he said, I'm gonna get you to get an interview over here and a screen test. So he did, and he became the next singing cowboy, just like that.
Wow.
Right. He was in the right place at the right time.
Plus, a big ingredient of what you just said is he was prepared.
Yeah, he was. He was. Even though it was totally against his personality because he was so shy, I think he was really up for it because he knew it involved singing cowboy. He was a cowboy of sorts. He had, had a horse. He knew how to ride. And he actually was one of the best riders in Hollywood. I mean, he could ride a horse, sit trigger at a full gallop and not even move. He could hold a cup of coffee and not spill a drop. I mean, that's how good he was. He really was.
Well, he could ride fast too.
Fast. Yes, he could.
I think he did most of his own stunts, as I remember.
Yeah, at the very beginning, they didn't have the use of a lot of stuntmen, so he had to do it. And then later on, of course, they realized, we don't want our stars to get hurt. So they started incorporating stuntman more on the scene. And but at the beginning, he did a lot, and he really kind of tore up his body, which kind of came back to revisit him in later years.
Yeah,
he was pretty achy.
Yeah. Well, I bet. Speaking of speed, I remember him talking about, I believe he had a speedboat, I think it was a cigarette boat.
Yes, he did have a speedboat. He was part owner in the Yellow Jacket Company at the time. And, those speedboats, when you race them, they really come down hard on the water. And he ended up having neck surgery because he had, crushed discs or whatever. Wow. And his hearing was bad because he had shot so many guns all of his life. And it kind of came back in later years. He and Gene Autry would sit on the phone in their lazy boy chairs and commiserate about all their aches and pains over the years.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Roy Rogers and Dale Evans on a little project that I worked on, and they were just delightful. And like you say and say in the book, he was shy. He was very very nice. Enjoyed
Very
talking with him,
nice.
but he was shy. She was very outgoing and very talkative.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He there was lots of silence with him in conversations because he just didn't know what to say. And grandma, she would tell you what she thought even if you didn't want to hear it.
Yeah,
You know, she was very very talkative. And somebody asked grandpa one time, "Does that bother you that Dale does most of the talking?" And he
yeah,
said, "No, because it gives me a chance to think of what I want to say." So it worked out fine for them.
yeah, yeah. Good fit. I
Yeah.
Well, I remember I had breakfast during this project. It was either in New York or Washington D.C., and had breakfast with Dale Evans, and just delightful. I mean, they were so unassuming.
Yeah.
And she lost one of her earrings and had to go and left. And I wound up finding it. It had fallen beside the chair or the little thing we we're sitting on, and returned it to her. And so she was grateful and said thank you,
Oh,
which is all I needed was a thank you. And
that's all. No reward money, huh?
just thank you. That's all that was a big reward. Yeah. So hero for the day. Yeah.
Yes, you were the hero.
So what is your favorite memory of your grandparents? Because you spent a lot of time with them.
A lot of time. They
And
really were instrumental in me becoming the person that I am today
yeah,
because they were so much a part of our lives. I have so many favorite memories, and I share them pretty much all in the book.
yeah,
Um, but my favorite memories always center around when I was in college. I really pressed in and wanted to know them. You know, I'm a young adult at that point, and I just wanted to know them better and deeper.
yeah.
And so on weekends, I would get away from the dorm life and go up to the high desert where they lived then, and I would spend the weekend with them. And those times were really precious because we would just talk and talk and talk. We'd sit around the breakfast table in our pajamas and just have coffee and talk about everything. And those are very special times. Grandpa would take me to the swap meet, and he'd take me out on his motorcycle or to the museum, and we would just have all kinds of time together. And he got way more comfortable with just opening up, and we had some very, very dear times together.
Well, and they were very family oriented and family people. They had 9 children.
Oh, yeah. They had 9 children and 16 of us grandchildren, and they worked a lot, but yet they still found time to come to my recitals, birthday parties, outings, the beach,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And what I loved about our family was that it was very multicultural and a very inclusive family, which is really relevant for today. You can say, oh, Ryan Dale, they were way back then, but they were really on the cutting edge of because they adopted so many kids from different
Yeah.
cultures.
Yeah.
And so my family, I have an aunt who is Native American. I had an aunt that was from Korea. I had an aunt that was Scottish, and my uncle was borderline special needs because he had been beaten so badly as a child. He had some mild brain damage. And
they
just
opened their heart and adopted him because of the situation.
They thought, who's going to adopt a little guy like this?
Yeah.
We can give him a great home. And it was such a loving, inclusive family and very diverse. There was no pecking order. Like nobody was more their child than another one because it was yours, mine, ours, adopted, and foster. And my dad happened to be the oldest one because Dale had run away at 14 and had my dad at 15. So he was the oldest sibling. And it went all the way down to my youngest sibling, who was only like 5 years older than me.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting family, very busy and chaotic, but loving.
and had its share of tragedy.
Very much so. It was really a tough 3 years or so because Robin, the only child they were to have together biologically, she was born with Down syndrome and heart problems. So she only lived till just before her second birthday, but it changed the family in such wonderful ways. When they took her from the hospital, the doctor said, well, where are you going to put her? Because back then they institutionalized those kids. And they said, what do you mean, where are we going to put her? We're going to take her home. Yeah. And so they really changed the social landscape of what people felt about those children and opened things up. And people started bringing their children out in public in droves to see them at their rodeos. And so Grandma and Grandpa would ask that they save those first few rows around the arena for those families with children like that. And they would side pass at the end of every show and shake hands and greet and take pictures and sign autographs for those kids. And it was wonderful.
Incredible.
They were so loving.
They were heroes on screen and off.
Yeah. I mean, they were, he was my hero because he got the tarantula out of the pool. That was, I felt so safe when he was around because he could do anything in my mind. Yeah. And, you saw him on the big screen. I just happened to see them through the screen door, when asking for a popsicle or something. And so I grew up with them just like you did, only I just saw that little extra part of their personal side.
Yeah. Yeah. And the child they had together who had Down syndrome and died, she was like 3 years old.
Yes.
And Dale wrote a book about that called Angel Unaware. Yeah.
She did. And that was a bestseller, and it's still in print today. It's still on Amazon.
Yeah.
And then they had Debbie that passed away, which really was a blow to me because she was only 5 years older than me. And I adored her. And she died in a bus accident on the way back from Tijuana, giving with the church group, giving clothes and toys to the children in the orphanage. And then my Uncle Sandy died when he was over in Germany with a horrible, unfortunate accident. And then Trigger died right on top of that. So Grandpa had to move from Chatsworth Ranch. He said, I just got to get out of here. There's too many memories. So there was a dark time in our family too.
That ranch was sold. Was that to Val Kilmer's?
Yeah, they sold it to Val Kilmer's family.
Yeah.
And years later, and I didn't know that because I was young and I wasn't privy to that and I didn't care.
Yeah.
But years later, I saw him come on the Academy Awards with a Trigger offspring. Trigger didn't have any offspring, but Trigger Jr. did, other, Triggers. And he said he grew up on Roy Rogers Ranch. And I thought, you did? I don't remember you. So I called my Uncle Dusty, Roy Rogers Jr., and he said, yep, they sold the ranch to Val Kilmer's family. So he did. And I guess Val's a little bit younger than I am. And so when I meet up with him again, I'm going to say, hey, I had no idea you grew up in the same house I did.
That's funny. Well, and then your family moved to, was it Apple Valley?
Then they moved to Apple Valley, and it was a big disappointment just because, not that Apple Valley, there's anything wrong with that, but they were in a beautiful ranch in Chatsworth, and they moved up to the high desert. And Apple Valley, I was thinking it was going to be green with lots of apple trees. Well, there were no apple trees. It was all cactus and, it was desert. And so that was a big adjustment for the family. But, they lived there, 20 something years too. So they had a good life.
Well, I hope people will buy your book. We'll put a link to probably Amazon where they can buy your book.
I would love that. Yeah.
And some other links to the old TV shows and people.
Well, and I'm working on a website so that people can write into the website, buy the book directly from me. I can sign it and send it back. So when I get that website up and running, which we're doing now, I'll send you the link for that. But the book is fun because it's such a short little chapters. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can just read little memories.
Little one story at a time.
Yeah.
You did an excellent job putting that together. And I know that that's not an easy task.
Well, thank you. I just thought, let me just start with one story for my kids because I wrote it for my kids.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, there's one story. Maybe I can write another story and another. And pretty soon I had 33 little stories and I had a book.
Yeah.
And that was really the way that it happened.
Well, and you're a teacher by profession.
Yes, I teach third grade right now. I've taught for
Wow.
30 something years.
Wow. Wow. And
So,
teaching has definitely changed over the years.
oh, yeah. My goodness, it's changed a lot. And I don't know, they're aging some of us older people out because it's so different. And
Yeah.
a lot of it is technology now
Yeah.
based.
Yeah.
So,
Well, everybody's got a screen in front of their face these days.
yep.
So,
Yep, exactly. Here we are.
yeah. And here we are. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I really enjoyed talking with you and wish you the best on the book. Send us that other link to the website when you get it set up.
Yes.
And what a special relationship to King of the Cowboys and Queen of the Cowboys, Hollywood power couple, the original Hollywood celebrity power couple, perhaps, in the early days of TV and really the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah, it was a special time. It was way different than now.
Yeah.
And they never forgot their roots, and they appreciated their fans and spent time with them. So they were authentic.
Well, buy Julie's book, Julie Rogers Pomilia, Your Heroes, My Grandparents, A Granddaughter's Love. It's, like I say, it's a heartwarming read and a fun read.
It's
Thank
a
you.
feel-good read. There's no dirt, by the way. If you're looking for dirt, go somewhere else because it's all good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as I said to you before, the only dirt you have in the book is what Trigger might kick
Yeah,
up. So,
exactly.
yeah. Be disappointing to a lot of people who want dirt, but
Yeah, that's right. But nope, no dirt.
yeah, it's a fun book. Thank you very much, Julie, for
Well,
taking the
thank
time.
you for having me. It's been really fun to talk to you.
Same here. Happy trails.
Happy trails. You got to have those.
See you
And
down the road.
We will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.